Hi, and thanks for wanting to learn more about our used car leasing program. You will be watching a recorded segment of a webinar we did recently. As you will hear, we jump right to the important stuff. No fluff, just how our patent-pending software works. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. You won't be disappointed.
This is Sunrise Toyota. It's a dealership out of Long Island using our widget. So the way we implement everything is basically based in their inventory. So we're going to click on to used inventory. We're going to view all because this product doesn't just work with
Can I pause you for just a second?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I want to pause you just for a second. I want John to chime in here because everyone's about to see something they're not going to expect as far as branding, and I want John to chime in on this to explain that before they see it.
Please
sure. What you're going to see, and again, Zach is renowned in leasing. I mean, this is his widget. You're going to see the Get a Lease logo. It's going to be our Think a Lease logo, but it's going to work exactly the same. Zach is the creator of this. He's also probably the most knowledgeable leasing person I've ever met in my 30 years in the business. Of course, we have the section for questions, but you're going to see this widget in action under Get a Lease, right? It's actually Think a Lease powered by Get a Lease in this instance, but you can see it on Sunrise Toyota right here, right now.
Thank you, and thank you for the kind words, John. Appreciate it. Yes, so guys, you're going to see the Get a Lease logo. Essentially, when it's time to launch the Think a Lease, it's just going to say Think a Lease instead of Get a Lease. So just jumping back in, this is a dealership. It's a live site. This is an actual dealership's website. So used inventory. We're going to click into all used because the product doesn't just work with Toyota. In this case, it works with every brand available. The leasing program is through Ally Financial. So essentially, as long as the dealership is signed up to Ally Financial as one of their lenders, they could already lease used cars. They need to integrate a couple things within Reynolds and DealerTrack to sort of activate Ally Used on their end. But pretty much, they're good to go. It's a very simple thing to get going. So again, all inventory. It's going to load up the page.
Hey, Zach, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. On your browser, can you do Control mouse up, and that'll zoom your screen?
Oh, yes, sure. Is that better?
A little more? Right there.
Good?
Very good. Thank you very much.
No, my pleasure. So the system is smart. It realizes what cars are leasable and what isn't. Now, a 2007, 2008, these Toyotas here, they're not going to lease. It's just too old. The average age bracket needs to be between a 2013 and a 2016. That's the age group that Ally will permit. So as we scroll through, you're going to start noticing there's no button here. But as we get older in cars, actually, it'd probably be easier to just sort it accordingly. Do the old. There we go. I'm going to get down into these vehicles here. Now, you see everyone, this Lease for $358 button? That's our button. That's what the Get a Lease product or the Think a Lease product really is going to be. Essentially, the button is going to be shaped and designed to match the other calls to action on the dealership's website. So this is a dealer.com site. We match the red and the font and everything to match the dealership site. If you went to a Dealer Inspire site, a Dealer Fire site, a Ford Direct site, whatever it's going to be, we're going to match and custom the button to look like his other calls to action. So it's a nice blend, and it's integrated nicely, and it doesn't stick out like a Post-it note or something. It's going to be really clean. So as we scroll through, you're going to notice cars have it and cars don't have the button. Certain restrictions like mileage. Notice this vehicle has 45,000 miles, and it's a 2015. It does not make it eligible for lease. The system, again, knows all that. So it knows to apply the widget or not to apply the widget. One of the other rules, of course, is a bad Carfax. If the vehicle has an accident or some sort of damage, it won't apply the button. So just scrolling through again, we're going to find the vehicle here. Oh, $435 a month. Let's click onto the actual vehicle to reach into the VDP. The button will also appear in the VDP as well. Again, designed to look like the rest of the calls to action, so it's clean. If we click into the VDP, it's going to bring up, hold on, the actual widget. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the widget here is going to say the dealership's name, Sunrise Toyota, a small short form for lead gen, and of course the payment grid. Now, it's a used lease. This system just did 9 calculations, 24 months, 10, 12, and 15K miles a year, 36 months, 10, 12, 15, and 48, 10, 12, 15. The green, as you see here, indicates the cheapest term. But I can click on any of the other payments inside of this grid. And as I'm doing it, you're noticing the payment box above is adjusting. Whoopsie. And even below, this little box down here is going to move about as well. You see the payment and the term is changing over here. Now, the down payment was set to $19.95 by the dealer, but we can change that to whatever I want. So let's just make this a $749 down payment, for example. And when I press calculate, all these 9 payments here are going to adjust instantaneously to what I just did on the front end. So ultimately, this product is very consumer facing, at least up until now. But this is where it becomes a dealer tool and how the dealership can now use leasing and treat this like a digital pencil. Now, on the bottom left corner of this widget, you're going to see this little right angle. Okay, this is actually a hidden button. You can click into it. Can you guys see that okay, or do you need me to zoom in?
Zoom in.
Better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so the lease breakdown page gives the dealership literally everything they need to put the information into their dealer track or their rentals or whatever DMS they're using in their store. All the vehicle information is right here. So the year, the make, the model, trim, mileage, VIN, etc. The payment that they clicked on, $463 a month, $749 down payment, 4-year lease, 10K miles per year. The net cap cost, which is the selling price of the vehicle, book out, which is powered by NADA Clean Trade, which is pretty much every lender uses, max advance, the base residual of the vehicle, but more importantly, all of the adjustments are already made on the used lease. When you lease a used car, the residual is a dollar-based residual versus a percentage-based residual. And every mile on the vehicle that the vehicle has accounts for the residual in either direction, up or down, by pennies. So like every mile can be worth 15 cents, and it all has to be adjusted accordingly. All the adjustments are made automatically. So the total residual is given, and then of course the interest rate for the lease is given as well. So the dealer, all they got to do is print it on the top right-hand corner. There's a little print button. Put this in the deal jacket, give it to F&I. F&I follows my sheet. It's done. That's it. Put the deal on dealer track. It's finished. Now, I can go back into the grid and
Could I chime in for 1 second, Zach?
Sure, of course.
I just want to say that I got a call the other day from one of our agents who was in a dealership, and the one question that the GM had was, how in the world, and he used more of an expletive, are you figuring out the residual on a used car? Because that is their painstaking calculation that most GMs and most salesmen don't have a calculus degree. And that's when I showed them that through that widget, we calculate the residual value for them through Ally Financial's algorithm. And we do all of that hard work for them. Like we said, we do the heavy lifting. And once I showed them that, they were like, okay, that works for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I get that, and it's funny. I get that all the time too. That worksheet, as we call it, the lease breakdown page, this is everything. This is the Bible as far as I'm concerned when it comes to calculating a lease. It's everything they need. And because, like you said, calculating a used lease or residual in this case, it is not trivial. It's it's not for the faint of heart. It's very difficult to do. And I think that's one of the main reasons that used leasing in general hasn't been such a mainstream product like regular leasing is, because it's so difficult to use and it's hard for F&I managers to adapt. And because realistically, if I took 20 brand new Toyota Camrys and I priced out one of them, I know the rest of them are going to be the same price. But if I put 20 2014 Toyota Camrys in front of you, every single one of those cars are going to be a completely different number. And it's not going to be like one's going to be 200, the other one's going to be 203. No, one car will be 144, one car will be 311, one car will be 262. It's all over the place. So this system takes all that hard work and all that heartache out of the dealership's hands, and more importantly, it makes it error-free for them. Because this ultimately is insured. So if there's ever a miscalculation on the dealer's behalf, we actually cover the loss and we indemnify the dealer if they deliver the vehicle at whatever miscalculation. Dealerships make mistakes for $500, $1,000 a day with no problems. The system is going to completely eradicate all that. So that's one of the main benefits. But just jumping back into this, the original thing I had down was a $749 down payment. I can go ahead and change this. Let's make it $2,500 just to play with it a little, and click on $468. If I re-click that box, it'll do exactly what I wanted. 36 months, $2,500 down, $468. The money factor changed because it's a different term, so it has a different rate. The residual changes. Everything moves with that grid. So the consumers can play with it and submit a lead, which works all the time. We see a lot of people walking in, just walking in, hey, I saw the car for $360 on your site, whatever, and they close them. And then, of course, the dealership can work this at their desk using this system. So it's very dynamic. What else? I mean, that's really it, guys. I mean, that's the whole product. It's that simple. I mean, please ask away.
It's beautiful, and the presentation is beautiful, and keeping it simple is the beauty. I think that's what we're selling is we keep used leasing simple. We do all of the hard work for you. You just put in a number, click it, and done, right? And then all they do is they take that printed out sheet and they use it with their lease submission forms they already have for Ally Financial, and that deal's done.
Yep, pretty much. And by the way, just to touch on it, you see this little powered by Get a Lease? This is what we were talking about in regards to the white label. Why can't I move? We're just going to switch that powered by Get a Lease out to powered by Think a Lease. And if I open the lease breakdown page again, on the bottom right, this little thing here, we're going to flip that over to Think a Lease. And I mean, that's essentially the whole white label. Now, one thing very important, because I'm sure it's a question, what happens if a consumer finds that little hidden box there and clicks on it? Guys, there's nothing incriminating on that page. There's nothing in there that tells the customer or the dealer that they're making X amount of dollars. There's nothing that says the profit is $4,000 or isn't. There's nothing that states the rate is bumped or isn't. So if a customer ever lands on that hidden button, the dealership is not going to be compromised in any way at all. And let's be honest, how many customers are really going to understand what's on that page to begin with? But in case they do, nothing there that's going to put the dealer in an awkward position.
And I also like the fact that you break down subprime credit. So then the person looks at the payment, they like it, they go into the F&I guy, and then they run the credit, and they're like, oh, well, these payments were based on A credit. What happens if they're B, C, and D? And you have the breakdown right there.
Yes, thank you. No, I'm sorry, I actually didn't touch on that. So if we scroll down towards the bottom of this worksheet page, I'll get to that in a second. Here's all the formulas necessary for used leasing. There's 4 different steps here. We put these out in numbers, and then, of course, everything is written out. So if you actually want to study how to write a used lease and you're like sadistic or something, please study that. It'll tell you everything. But I already did all the work, so you don't have to. So touching on your question, below is all the rates for different levels of credit. S tier and for Ally Financial is the top credit. D tier is the lowest credit. 14.74% interest is not free, but they'll buy. Now, everything is based on a 720 credit score as far as payments. But if the guy comes in at tier C, which is probably a 660, 650-ish credit, maybe a little less, you just look at tier C, you apply the new rate in your DMS, and it'll recalculate the payment just using that new rate. Now, and of course, you can change any of the rates using this little grid.
Now, real quick, depending on the down payment from the customer, let's say he puts like $10,000 there, does that change the rate, the grades at all? The rates?
The rate's fixed.
Gotcha.
Rates and residuals are pretty fixed. But yeah, just to, I'll do that for you here. Let's just see if it even gives me a payment at $10,000 down. No, not at all. Actually, so just to touch on that, you see how it shows $1 here? So it's actually a rule that we implied because there's so many cars that we find in the system where like the lease will be like $38 or $12 or something crazy. And then when the dealership sets a fixed down payment across the board for $5,000, we don't want to show a negative integer because I've seen that happen where all of a sudden the lease payment is negative $72.
The dealer pays you $10.
It happens. So we actually wrote a default rule in our code that it basically defaults the lease payment to $1. So if you ever see something that says $1 on the site, it's probably because the down payment's higher than the whole down payment's higher than the whole monthly payment. So you have to kind of take that into account. Yeah. But just again, if I click back into that little lease breakdown page, it'll pop me in there, payment $1, $10,000 down payment, and everything is applied accordingly. But the residual stays the same. The money factor stays the same. Nothing changes on that front.
All right, so you're ready for some questions here?
Let's do it.
All right.
That was a beautiful presentation, by the way, Zach. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Just so you know, our group, a lot of them are automotive experts. Some of them are automotive novices, but they are awesome at selling. So wherever possible, when you're using acronyms to show things off, make sure you kind of explain what the acronym means. That way everybody can learn the terminology, because they're the ones that will be going in the dealerships as well. So I'm going to start. Are the rates tied to Ally Financial's rates and changes weekly, daily, and monthly?
Great question. So yes, the rates are published by Ally Financial. They change at their own discretion. So when we pull their program, it's actually kind of weird. It'll say start date, let's just say September 12th, end date to be determined. And it's literally like that every time. But our system has essentially a 24-hour, it's not like an API, but it's something like that, where it'll constantly pull the Ally program every 24 hours. So if there's ever a change in the program, the residual, anything, we catch it every 24 hours, and the system automatically updates. So realistically, once we plug this thing into a dealer, they don't touch it. You don't touch it. It does the work every day.
Okay, next question. Does it have to be an off-lease vehicle in order for it to be leased again?
Oh, not at all. One thing very interesting about Ally's program and why we chose to partner with them first was because the vehicle doesn't even have to be certified. So it doesn't have to be a certified pre-owned vehicle or a CPO vehicle. As long, the dealer just has to sell the customer an extended warranty of some sort, and the vehicle is eligible for lease. It doesn't have to be off lease. As long as it fits the age bracket of 2013 to 2016, it doesn't matter. A used car is a used car.
Are most used car dealerships ready for this, or do they need to be signed up with Ally Financial? And if so, how easy is it for a used lot to sign up with Ally Financial?
Okay, great question. So if the dealership already has Ally Financial, it's pretty quick. They call their DMS, they activate Ally in the DMS. They call their dealer tracker Route 1, they activate the Ally used button. Both those are one phone call each, and well, theoretically. And then we just onboard the widget onto their site, and they're good to go. For the dealerships that don't have Ally Financial, we do have to apply for them to for the bank to approve them for the store to use the lender. I think the following question you asked me was, how does it make the salesman's job easier? So if the dealership allows, and this is kind of depending on dealer process really. If the dealership allows for their sales team to pencil their own deals, the salesman can literally sit on their own website, sit with the customer on their own website, and play with the tool right then and there until the consumer is satisfied with the payment. And again, just print out that lease breakdown page like we showed a little earlier. They can print out the lease breakdown page right here. There's a little print icon, and give it to finance and finish the deal. So as far as the salesman job, it's effort. It does all the work. It also saves the desk quite a bit of time and effort, and frees up a lot more of stress. And also, more importantly, it saves the dealer from a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I mentioned on the last call we did last week. Remember the show King of Cars?
Yeah.
Where every time there was a car deal going on, they would literally sit. I mean, you'd see that outside the dealership would be daytime. By the time they got the deal done, it was nighttime because they're going back and forth trying to figure out the best deal. A salesman would know exactly the price that they're going to get right off the bat.
To the dollar. And that's one of the very special things about this product is it's not your typical dealer advertised $199, come on down. It's not like that at all. It's a very dollar-specific payment, and it's specific to that VIN number. So each payment is unique. And again, you'll see numbers like 243 and 316, et cetera. And that's special because when you sell a car and you tell a customer, hey, it's 316, it doesn't sound like I'm selling it to for $319.99. it doesn't sound like I'm selling you. It sounds like it's a genuine payment, and it makes the sales process a lot flowier. I mean, I've been selling cars for basically 10 years. Of my 10 years, 98, 99% of the business I've done was lease. I've had a brokerage in New York for the better part of a decade. I mean, I've literally leased thousands of cars. And anytime I've leased a vehicle and told the customer payment was $316 versus $319, I've always found it easier to close them because they feel like that payment's genuine. And that's also part of the product. It shows a transparent, genuine payment with no BS in between.
Yeah, I mean,
and I want to add too that because it does the calculations like that. I mean, some used vehicles on leasing come in at a very, very good rate, right? Some don't, right? And the big issue has always been, well, you know, it's a pain in the neck to calculate to figure out where the good stuff is. So this identifies the really good leasable product for a dealer, and it's almost self-attracting in terms of identifying a buyer. So where before you have to do the cumbersome part, this does it for you. So now a customer can identify a really good lease price out there.
Absolutely. And what's interestingly enough, and just touching on what you said, not every car is going to be a grand slam as far as a payment. A lot of times a used lease payment is going to be comparable to a new lease payment, and you're going to see that a lot. But what you're going to find that freakishly cheap car for $82 that shouldn't be anywhere near that. And now all of a sudden the dealership can make a home run on that car because they can mark it up to 150 if they wanted to, hypothetically. But more importantly, he's going to go, holy crap, a 2014, let's just say, Hyundai Sonata Hybrid Limited that I know is supposed to be $350 a month. I can lease them used for $160. I'm going to the auction and I'm picking up 25 more. So it can actually help the buying process for these used car lots or these new car dealers with used inventory, and it can help focus their used inventory and focus it towards used leasing, knowing the potential that the vehicle has in its calculations.
Well, that's a fantastic sales pitch for a dealership. The fact that they can go out and target what cars they want on their lot, that's fantastic.
It's really the best thing about these used cars, especially when you're leasing them, you can just get them back. At the end of the lease, if the car's young enough, the dealer can buy that car and lease it all over again. Not to mention the retention. So when you finance a customer for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years now even, you're never going to see that guy again. He's dead to you. But at least in a lease, the guy comes back every 2-3 years. The dealership has retention, has a book of business. Yeah. Leasing is a big part of what today is going to be. Millennials are eating it up. 40% of lease penetration this year was millennials.
Yeah, and dealerships, they want that retention because if you look at Ford just launched their huge quick service or whatever it's called, but they're trying to compete with Jiffy Lube. I mean, they want that service, they want that retention of service and customers coming back, and the only way to do it is ultimately through leasing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I built my entire brokerage business on retention. I never advertised a day of my life. It was just customers that constantly came back to me every 2-3 years like clockwork. And then their husband needed a car and their mom needed a car. And then they would it would snowball. One sale will turn into 10. And I mean, and when I used to train my sales staff, I used to always tell them, it's never about the first sale. It's always about the second. Because the first sale, you'll make regular money. You'll make $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever your margin is. That second sale, when that guy already trusts you, you're making double. And that's the beauty of leasing. It keeps turning that customer over and over again. So a 72-month finance, you sell the guy once. A 24-month lease, you sell the guy 2-3 times.
So if you can convince dealerships, instead of selling the used car, lease it so that you get that guaranteed return business, that's going to turn them on even more to having this product.
Yeah, and I think the guys out there know that. That's why leasing on the new car end is so strong. But again, the thing is, as Zach said, I think that the blockage there was just the complexity of calculating that used lease, right?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
This takes that complexity out. Now all of a sudden it's a brand new ballgame.
Without a doubt.
All right. So next question. Let's say my name's Jim Bob. My wife's name's Bertha, right? And I come to Sunrise Toyota and I see this. What kind of car is that? Is it an Accord or something?
Camry.
All right. I'm going to go into Sunrise Toyota, Bertha. that price is $20,883. I could talk him down to $18,000. Is there a way for them to edit the price, internet price of the car on your widget?
So on the front end, there isn't, and we did that on purpose. We didn't want to show the customer. We don't want them throwing these arbitrary low ball, non-existent type of numbers, because it wouldn't have made the process smooth. But that being said, once I find a button, here we go. Load. Let me load this up. So this is based on the $32,000 selling price. Okay. If I go into the button again, you're going to see net cap cost is $30,888 because there's a $2,000 down payment here to reflect that. But if I came back in and said, I want you to sell me the car for $25,000. All right. So all we're going to do is put a $7,000 cap cost reduction here. The new payments will now reflect, right? Let's just click here for a second. But look at the net cap cost, $25,883. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at math. Let's try that again. $70,883.
Good enough.
Yeah, and then at that point, the selling price is based on $25,000, and now the lease reflects that new $25,000 selling price.
Brilliant.
So it's doable. We just don't make that process consumer facing. It's sort of something the dealer would need to play with.
Yeah, you just make the down payment a little bit more.
Down payment.
I'm sorry. What was that?
You just make the down payment a little bit more to factor in what your negotiated price would be.
Yeah, and ultimately you just don't collect the down payment. If you were able to sell the car for that money, you put the down payment in there to get to that payment, to get to that monthly payment. But at the end of the day, if you're discounting the vehicle, you just don't collect that down payment that was applied.
Isn't the point of a lease to give a lower payment? Since a new car has a much higher residual, why would someone want to lease a used car for a monthly payment around a new car lease?
Good question. So, touching on something we spoke about slightly earlier, not every vehicle is going to be super aggressive. For the most part, not for the most part, but a lot of the times, you're going to see the same payment, or at least similar payments between new and used cars. And that's sort of what's been going on, like what John said a little earlier about the new car market slightly changing. I've already seen incentives on new cars sort of retract a little bit. I'm expecting new car lease payments to increase, which is going to make used leasing a little bit more attractive. But yeah, not every car is going to be $42 a month. It's unrealistic. But it also depends on how the dealership is marking up their vehicle. If you have a dealership that's front loading $3,500 a unit on the front end, you're going to see a pretty high lease payment. So it's about the dealer, it's about programs. There's so many different things that go into it.
So one thing I want to point out too, and again, it bears repeating, I think, is that as Zach says, right? Some leases, used car leases, come out very good, right, for the consumer. Mm-hmm. Some not so good, right? That's the value of this widget essentially because it calculates immediately, right? If you had to do paper and pencil on every unit on your used car lot, I can tell you right now that's the reason why dealers don't do it, right? On the other hand, a widget will identify those units that are most lucrative to lease used at any particular point in time, which changes every month, right? So
yes,
the value,
that's exactly right.
In addition to the sales aspect, immediately close a deal, as Zach says, it's, hey, I've just identified the units that make sense used car leasing, so now I know what to stock in my used car inventory. So, I mean, it absolutely varies depending on the unit, but as a used car, varies in general in a used car lease, the dealer really, there's a value in identifying what are the top retail units, and that's what this does, and it's a secondary value, but it's a very critical value when you're dealing with used cars.
That being said, could you expand upon the accuracy guarantee?
Yes. So we have an insurance company that backs our calculations for our widget. So if there's ever a miscalculation somehow, it's rare, but if it ever does happen and the dealership has to deliver the vehicle, submit a bill of sale and a lease contract to us, we will indemnify the difference. So if the payment was supposed to be $350, for example, and we advertised it for $320 and it was a $30 difference a month, which let's just say it's a $1,000 loss, we will cut a check back to the dealer for the $1,000. Now, That being said, it has to be our fault. Meaning, if the dealership sends us the wrong selling price in their feed because of a typo an administrator in the store has made, I can't be accountable for that. But if we really did make a miscalculation, absolutely, I will cover that loss.
So the customer is going to pay the payment they thought they were going to pay,
Yes.
and we're going to and we make up the difference through insurance.
Yes.
In all your examples that you've been showing us, what is the lowest possible credit score to acquire a leased used vehicle?
Okay, so there's a technical answer to that, and then there's the real answer to that. The technical answer is Ally Financial will approve anyone above, I want to say, a 620 credit. Actually, I apologize, it's 640. Anything over a 640 credit score, that's their thing. The real answer to that question is it's really contingent on the relationship the dealer has with Ally. Ally is one of these banks that if you give them a lot of paper, if you write a lot of leases or a lot of finances through them every month, they'll be a lot more lenient with you. If you're floor planning with them, they'll be a lot more lenient with you. So approvals can be flexible. It doesn't have to be 640. You know, if the guy's a 610 and they call the analyst, hey, can you do me a favor? They'll get it done. Also, one thing about Ally is they're very monthly payment conscious. So if the customer puts enough money down and they make that payment attractive enough to the bank, they'll buy it. So it's sort of a loaded question because, like I said, there's a real answer and then there's like the technical answer to it. You know.
Tressa asks, so it's the residual that an F&I manager wants to know first?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yes. Jack?
I'm jumping in right now. Hold on there, buddy. Let me just unit. Give me a second.
That was
guys.
the first question that a F&I manager asked me was, how do I know the residual?
Yeah. Well, again, so let me just load this up here. Here we go. So if we go back into that lease breakdown page, just realized I have 4 of those tabs open. I could have saved this whole time. Total residual is right there, 6786. So if you look for the total residual number, that's the residual they're gonna implement in their DMS. Of course, the residual is based on term and based on mileage. So if I clicked on a different term with different mileage, that residual figure changes. Now it's 7176 instead of like 6786, let's say. So always look for that field, total residual. That is the number. That's the magic number. Sure. So, you know, there's a questionnaire. I'm sure you guys are going to send it out to your team there of all the necessary information that we're going to require from the dealer. Once we take it on our end, we do an inventory pull. So if they're using, let's just say, for example, they're using Vioto as their inventory manager. We're partnered with HomeNet, which is another inventory manager. HomeNet will then basically call via API, which is a code thing. Via API, they'll call to Vioto, extract all of the dealership's inventory, place it in our inventory manager. That's step 1. Step 2, we then call, let's just say, dealer.com or Dealer Inspire, one of these whatever the web provider is for the dealership, and we'll request from them to integrate our widget onto the dealership's website. We hand over to them the lines of code, which, by the way, is like 2 lines of code. We've made it in a way where it's dummy-proof for them to install it. They then drop these 2 lines or 3 lines of code onto the dealership's back end, their code file, and then that's it. We basically then at that point we input the rest of the data, like the Carfax login password, all the rules like the down payment rules, and et cetera, and then within 24 hours after that, that's it. It's functioning.
Well, there you have it in a nutshell. To get more info and get your dealership ready to handle the estimated 4 million units coming back on market, take the next step and join us. Dealers that can offer a lease on used and CPO vehicles will gain a competitive advantage. So just click on the link here and get started. Thanks, and we look forward to working with you.